Hey everybody, it is late at night and I am Norman. I have broken all of the laws of watch collecting decency simply by purchasing a watch. That watch just arrived today, so tonight I'm going to share with you my first impressions of it after I explain what in the world I'm talking about. So let us begin. So back when I first started collecting watches back in the day, my collection looked quite a bit different than it does now. It was nearly 100% dive watch. And not only that, but I was extremely picky about the dive watches that I was after. They basically had to all be mil-sub watches. Although at the time I wasn't even aware of that term, so there was an awful lot of searching around trying to describe the look that I was after. And that was when I bumped into brands like Christopher Ward. However, all of their watches had batten markers, so I wasn't interested in those at all. But I ended up owning an Armida A1, if I remember the model correctly. And this was a brilliant 40mm mil-sub watch, and I owned it for a while. But I decided to get rid of it and go for something with more water resistance. Because, 200 meters of water resistance just isn't enough. At that time, I had no idea. I just figured the more water resistance, the safer the watch would be when I'm swimming around with it. So I sold that watch and ended up getting a Jeanneau. And later sold that because of the seedy backstory. But yeah. Anyway, the other day I was reading through a forum post where someone was asking for Explorer 1016 alternatives. And I was going through there to see if there was anything that I hadn't encountered yet. And as I was scrolling through and reading responses, a mil-sub came through for some reason. And this was actually an Armida watch. And when I saw it, I immediately felt a bit nostalgic for my old Armida. I remember how exciting it was to first receive that watch and how much I really loved that watch. I probably should have hung on to it a little bit longer and enjoyed it a bit more. However, that watch was doomed to leave my collection at some point because when I made the switch over to dress watches, that was the fate of all of my dive watches. I ended up selling them off and using that to help fund brilliant Bauhaus dress watches and stuff like that. However, the Armida in this forum post was completely different from my old one. It looked identical to it pretty much, but it had 300 meters of water resistance. And the person who posted it also posted all of its specifications. And one of these attributes in particular froze me in my tracks. These contemporary brand new dive watches have 36mm cases on them. After I saw that, I was kind of obsessed. For a while, I had actually been keeping my eyes open for vintage dive watches that have 36mm cases, just to see what one might look like in person. However, this was a contemporary, actual dive watch with a vintage-sized case, so I would actually be able to use it as a dive watch. I decided I had to get one. Now, if you're enjoying this video and want to see more of my watch content, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. And in the near future, I'm going to be doing a full review of the watch that I'm about to show you. So if you don't want to miss that video, be sure to hit the notifications icon also. So that was the unthinkable thing that I've done. I purchased a dive watch with the 36mm case. I get it, I absolutely agree. Sporty watches like dive watches and pilot's watches in particular should be larger watches. I feel like dive watches should be around 40mm, and pilot's watches even larger because that's part of their heritage. However, I'm weird and kind of a contrarian, so I really wanted to get a 36mm dive watch. I generally wear watches that are between 34 and 36mm, so I figured this would be perfect, and there's the nostalgia factor. I would own an Armida again. The one that I had owned was absolutely solid, just a brilliant watch. And it's crazy how fast these watches arrive when you purchase from this brand. My piece arrived in less than a week. But enough babbling on, let's actually take a look at this watch. Here is the Armida A11. And actually it has a 35mm case, but the bezel extends it out to 36mm. And I just double checked, the watch that I used to own was an A2, not an A1. But other than the details on the bezel, I think that the one that I had owned had the partial minutes markers on it, not all the way around like this one has. Other than that, this watch looks nearly identical to the one that I used to own, just smaller. And going in, I knew that this was going to be a thicker watch, and the smaller case size would kind of exacerbate that. And really, that is the only negative thing I can see about this watch so far. I would like to get a rubber strap for it so it'll sit a bit closer to the wrist. I have this on a canvas strap currently. I love these straps because unlike nylon NATO straps, when they get wet, they don't expand. This originally shipped on a Jubilee bracelet. In the full review, I'll show that to you as well. But yeah, these watches are absolutely solid and just gorgeous looking. It arrived just today, and so I've been wearing it for a few hours. And it's really comfortable. It's not clunky. I'm used to wearing dress watches pretty much every day. So when I do wear a dive watch, they always seem large and big and heavy and clunky. This one is not like that at all. And Armida makes really quality watches. I mean, this bezel is just absolutely solid. Zero backplay whatsoever. And the lume on it is great. And the really cool thing about this, that my old Armida did not have, the movement in this is an ETA movement. In the full review, I'll go over exactly which one it is. But I did put it on the time grapher, and wow. It was running 3 seconds fast. The beat error was 0. Just a solid straight line across the screen. Way to go, Armida. I'm definitely going to have to get a couple of Bond NATOs for this too, because that would look amazing. Even though this isn't a full review, I have to show you a wrist shot. Because this might be the only time you ever see a 36mm dive watch on someone's wrist. Well, other than in the full review, of course. So let me take off my pull router, and we'll look at this tiny dive watch on my 7-inch wrist. And there it is. To me, this looks like a normal size, because that's what I'm used to. And the cool thing is, if you like this aesthetic, if you like what Armida's done with this watch, there are all kinds of other sizes you could go for. There's 40mm, I think they have some 42mm dive watches as well. And this particular lineup also has some really fun, bright colorways to the dial and bezel as well. So you can get a small diver in a fun color. But yeah, it is thick, but oh, that's really brilliant. Just looks amazing. I'm really excited for the summertime because dive watches are just so brilliant. When you're on the beach, in summer gear, they just look amazing. Yeah, so keep your eyes open for the full review of this watch. After I've spent some time with it, we'll really dig into it. That is so cool. It's great having a mil sub back in the collection. It's been years. Pretty exciting. So there you have it, my little tiny Armida full-on dive watch. Thanks for watching.